Ed with Pinball Mayhem here for another installment of So I Bought a Pinball Machine. This is continuing my project. It's a Centaur II that we are working on, and the next step, I got it disassembled. In my last video I mentioned removing the playfield. I took the light shield out, haven't really started cleaning anything up. I went through the cabinet and any nuts, bolts, papers, anything that looked like it wasn't solder or dust or critters of some sort, I kept. Even if I don't use it again, it's going to give me hints as to maybe what happened in the past. Well, here's a transistor. So was that a spare? Who knows? Did this capacitor break off or was it replaced? So it's just I can throw out what I don't need when I'm all done. I can be able to visually inspect, and everything that I have out I can repair, touch up, and make it right before it goes into the game. Nice thing about this game is the transformer and rectifier board come out together. Power module looks like it has some work done on it. I don't know if it's the greatest work yet. We'll have to dig a little deeper to look into that, but it kind of looks a little bit roasted. So we'll see how far I want to take that and go on. So the big thing is I have the cabinet emptied out and inspected for damage. Like I said, I wanted to vacuum it, and the next step is I want to get up on feet so I can start working on the inside of the cabinet before any of those things that are on the bench go in. So taking a look at it, there's a couple oddities on this side. There's this board, and at first I thought it was, being it's white, I thought it was a not original, tacked on. I removed it, and it looks like it was originally glued on as part of a different clue as to the history of this cabinet. But this is going to go back on. It is supposed to be there. It was originally put in by the factory. That hole is for something else. And another oddity found is the wires are actually clamped into the speaker here, or the speaker board, between the speaker board and the bottom. So I'm going to take that speaker off, free those wires up, inspect them. I'm not going through any of the wires just to get this on feet. Right now I just want to get this empty cabinet on its feet. But just keep an eye out for things like this varistor was installed but not soldered in on the bottom. Other broken wires. The back here has had some painting done, some unusual work. Right, so if you look, this board has drywall screws in it, and definitely has cracked out, broken. That's something that's going to get repaired once it gets back on, once it gets up on its feet. Right now I don't need to do that to put on its feet. Another thing I noticed you're going to have to address later is grounding wires. Just anything twisted together. AC lines will have factory wire nuts, but anything else is suspect it needs to be. It looks like the grounding wires throughout this whole thing have been just hacked up. And grounding wires are important for a game to operate properly. I just kind of have this power wire, I preach it all the time. You want a grounding pin. You have to have a grounding pin. Have it right. That's junk. This whole cable back to here is going to get replaced. I'm not going ahead with this. Cheapest way to get a cable, measure this out, get yourself a 10-12 foot extension cord with a nice pre-molded in on it. Cut the outlet side off. If you give it an extra foot, you have an outlet for something else. So, if you watched the last video, the bottom had a piece of plywood attached to it. Here's that bottom side of the plywood. And after removing it, I had to think, why was it put on in the first place? Was it put on just to extra strength? And then really, there's a lip that this wood sits in. It's missing from here to here, and here down to here. This is loose. Maybe it was in an arcade, someone could pry this out, or it was prying on it with a screwdriver to try to get in there to get free credits. Who knows? And this corner is a bit loose, but it's not loose left and right, it's just loose front and back. So the next step I'm going to do, and this is a chunk of hardwood, so this will, I'm going to cut this to length. I'm actually going to trim this down a little bit because it's stepped. I'm going to make this a square end, and this is going to go in on the left side, and across here I have another piece I'm going to cut in and put there. On the inside of the cabinet, you can see there's a separation. There's supposed to be some glue. I'm going to wipe that down one more time, put some glue, and I'm first going to tighten this up so that that bottom sits flush. Going back to here, once the bottom sits flush, I'm going to be able to put this in. My wood is just a hair high. I do that on purpose, so when I'm all done I can take it, I can hit it with a sander quickly, knock it down without hitting the wood, but I always leave it just a hair high, because if I do move this in a truck or something, I'd rather drag it on this hardwood, which is not going to flake, rather than the original. And you notice I even put a bevel on there. You're not going to see it when it's high. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach those wood, tighten up these nails, let that glue dry, and I'm going to tighten up this corner and have that glued down. It's not too far back, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it up on some boards, put a pipe clamp, and put a board on here with some wax paper, work some glue in. Thank you for watching, and make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. After I filmed the last video, I clamped up the one side, and there's pictures of that. Once that dried, I was able to chisel the strip. It ended up being relatively loose, so I replaced the whole side, and it's clamped right now. You can see that's some of the wood that came off. I decided it was easier, it'd be actually much cleaner, stronger if it was the whole side. I took a little scrap and I jammed it in here. It's a little high, so I'll end up just hitting that with a sander before I call it done. We're going to let this dry overnight, and then I'm going to tackle the next piece. A lot of this with cabinet repair is do one thing, wait a day. Don't rush it.